Imagine, if you could, a prosperous and wealthy kingdom of 7 nations, complete with magical priestesses and an immortal army. Such a place would be seemingly indestructible and would surely survive the test of time. However, one day the kingdom known as Land's End would be afflicted by a devastating plague that mutated the infected into grotesque, mindless monstrosities. A never-ending torrential downpour known as the Reign of Death brought with it something far worse than death. It is this land of Ender Lilies that we'll be exploring today, so that we may learn of a king's sins and the insurmountable burden that children were fated to suffer before they could even take their first breath. So, without further ado, let's get started. Our story begins as a young girl dressed in white awakens from her slumber, devoid of all memories and no knowledge of who she is or where she may be. She bravely ventures deeper into the White Parish along with the enigmatic Umbral Knight in search for answers. It isn't long before she discovers her name is Lily, and that she belongs to an order of powerful priestesses that are tasked with the purification of the blight that has ravaged Land's End. With each new soul purified, Lily's frail physical form absorbed the mutagenic blight and freed those who were doomed to an eternal, misshapen existence of madness. The toll on her body was great, and her ally, the Umbral Knight, urged her to abandon her duties and escape with her life. But Lily, the ever-selfless and dutiful priestess, trudged ever onward. In time, she learned that she was the last of the white priestesses and that her continued purification of blight would eventually lead to her inevitable demise. Lily soon discovered that the king of Land's End had come to this new continent with conquest in mind and had warred with the native race of people known as the Ancients. It wasn't long before the king's mission was complete. With the Ancients all but eradicated, save for a young girl dressed in white, Land's End was under new leadership. Whether it was fate or some other cruel design, the king had in all essence kidnapped an orphan child and took her as his own. Eventually, the blight that had once burrowed deep below the land surfaced and began to take hold of the citizens of Land's End. The blight was swift and merciless as it immediately combined and twisted life forms into grotesque shapes, vaguely reminiscent of their former human selves. As the young girl grew, so too did her powers. The king soon discovered that the solution for the blight was standing right before him. The young girl, who would later be known as the first white priestess, had the ability to purify those afflicted by the blight and end the threat to the kingdom. Unfortunately, unbeknownst to the king, his priestess had 2 vulnerabilities. The first was that although her mind would remain intact despite her exposure to the blight, her body would react similarly to any other infected individual. Second, the white priestess was sterile and unable to bear a successor by any natural means. It would seem their victory would be short-lived. In an act of desperation, the king formed a brigade of mages that was tasked with the research of the blight in order to end it by any means necessary. Prisoners who were deemed heretics were abducted from the stockades to be experimented on in the deepest depths of Land's End, known as the Verboten Domain. This research proved fruitful, and eventually, along with the selfless cooperation of the White Priestess, the Deathless Elixir was created. This concoction was designed to grant the user immortality so that they may protect the priestess for all eternity. However, this was only part of the solution. The priestess's longevity was finite, but there was a solution for that as well, so that she could purify the blight perpetually. Due to her inherent sterility, there was only one method that remained. Phaedon of the King's Mage Brigade had devised a means to clone the first white priestess to artificially extend her life through his test subjects. The plan was foolproof, or so they thought. In time, the altruistic first priestess, known as the Priestess of the Fount, accepted her mission to purify the blight and ventured into the Verboten Domain. In the depths of the abyss, she found a massive concentration of blight and attempted to purify it. The blight consumed her and transformed the white priestess into a being of pure evil. She had now become the Blighted Lord, the source of the blight that would lay waste at Land's End and reduce it to nothing more than ash and rubble. After discovering this revelation, Lily sought out an ancient relic called the Aegis Curio. With great effort, she pieced together the stone tablet fragments and deciphered the rites. With the newly restored relic in hand, Lily had the ability to purify the blight and keep its mutagenic effects at bay. In an epic battle of good against evil, Lily triumphed and defeated the Blighted Lord. After performing a purification, she reunited with the Priestess of the Fount, the only maternal figure she ever knew, albeit in dreams and shattered memories, and cured Land's End of the Blight once and for all, forever restoring the land to its former beauty under the clear blue skies. Only one thing remained. What was to become of Lily, the young girl in white? Well, that's for you to decide. And until next time, it's the Inhuman One signing out.